That's a brand new wheel bearing. I think my hubs finally wore out. Don't mind the grass in there, it's fine. Well, that's just gonna have to hold on till Moab. I just put a brand new bearing in there and greased it. I think it'll be fine. This wheel bearing situation, it did not get better. So that's what this box of parts is for. All original OEM Polaris parts. See if we can figure out the culprit to that slop in the wheel bearing. Yeah, pretty cool stuff, I know. This is what we're trying to resolve. Is that slop in there? So what I did already, you might have seen it in a previous post, is I put a new bearing in here. Here's the old one. This one is not an OEM Polaris one. Although the OEM Polaris one, right here, see, Polaris bag. This is the OEM Polaris one. Right on it, it says China. I'm not entirely sure where this bearing is from, regardless. This is the old used one. It has like, I don't know, maybe 1,500 miles on it or so. Anyways, so this is my original knuckle. This is my original hub or whatever. I don't know what they actually call these, but these are the original parts that came with it. 2015 with 6,000 miles. So what I did is I ordered OEM Polaris, Amazon super cheapo, and I want to measure the differences and see if there really is any differences. And then, because I wanted to have all the parts to fix it right in case the super cheapo ones didn't work, I ordered the OEM Polaris knuckle with the OEM Polaris wheel hub deal and the OEM Polaris wheel bearing. So let's take some measurements and see if there's anything different. Let's start first with the bearings. So this one, OEM Polaris. This one is not. Part number is not even the same. This one is one that I bought from Amazon. That's the number for it. I don't remember what company it is. So let's start with the OEM Polaris one with our calipers on millimeters, because we're feeling millimeter-ish today. 72.08. That's on the OEM Polaris one. All right, on the one that's got like 1,500 miles on it, that's not an OEM Polaris one, 72.09. So those are exactly the same. And on the other brand new Amazon knockoff one, 72.08. So this one's the same as the OEM Polaris one. All right, so width, 33 millimeter, OEM Polaris one. Knockoff one that's used, 33 millimeter. Amazon knockoff one, 33.18 millimeters. So it's just a little bit wider than the used one and the OEM Polaris one. So that's all of our bearing differences. Now, let's look at the hub. So here's the original hub that I've got that's got like 6,000 miles on it. This thing diameter 44 millimeter. All right, now the Amazon knockoff one, 43.98, so a tiny bit smaller. And then the OEM Polaris one, 44.03. I'm not gonna measure the rest of it. Well, you know what? I'll measure the depth of it, because I know when you suck in the CV, when this is all assembled like this, when you suck in the CV axle, it is actually sitting on the back side of this bearing. So that's how you kind of sandwich that and make it tight. So if this length is different, that, I guess that could affect it. So let's see what our total depth is. This is going to be super precision on the back of the truck, which is, I'm sure, extremely flat. 57.19 on the one with 6,000 miles on it, OEM Polaris. Amazon knockoff one, 57.54, so a little bit shorter. And then brand new OEM Polaris one, 57.35. So what was the used one? 57.39. So that's also negligible difference. The problem that I found with this one, like the whole bearing, outer race and all, rotate inside of this housing. I don't know if you guys can see it because it's not constantly doing it, but imagine with the weight of the vehicle, it's just spinning in this housing. So that's the reason why I ordered this, is because bearing spun eventually in this after having so many miles on it. And this is the culprit, was this part. So I've got OEM bearings, and I also have these Amazon bearings that measure the exact same. The only difference that I see between them is the seal on the OEM bearing is a metal seal with a rubber lip, and the seal on the Amazon bearings are just a plastic sort of lip seal. Well, it's kind of rubbery. I don't know, but it doesn't have any metal on the seal. What I'm going to do, just for the sake of argument and because I'm completely tired of screwing with this, is I'm just going to press the Polaris bearing in the Polaris knuckle with the Polaris hub. And then we're going to be freaking done with this. All right? Are you paying attention? We'll see how that doesn't want to just fall in there. It's because it is a press fit. So we'll go use the press and press it together. And what I do is I use an old bearing to push it the rest of the way so that you can get down to where the snap ring groove is. There you go. See how you can see the snap ring groove? That's all you got to do. Don't go crazy. That's it. Were you watching? Now see, when you rotate this, just the inner race rotates. The whole bearing does not. That's the way it's supposed to be. All right, we're doing good. Next step. We got to get the rotor off of this. I did not buy a new one because I didn't buy a new one. And what's wrong with this? I don't see anything wrong with it. I mean, it's used. It's got some material missing off of it, but I don't care. We're reusing this one. So we got to press these wheel studs out of there, and I did buy new ones. I don't really care if we screw those up. I put blue Loctite on everything on the RZR. I also drop everything too. The reason why I do this is I've had this machine for 8 years now, and I've had every bolt on it come loose. So I just put blue Loctite on every single thing. I don't care what the bolt is. It gets blue Loctite on it. Not very much, see? Just that much. Not a whole bunch. Just calm down with the blue Loctite. You don't need to use the whole frickin' bottle. Always kind of try and do them evenly, especially since you're working with cast aluminum. Torque spec is probably way less than what I'm torquing these to, but that's fine. Alright, those are good. Now, the next thing that I do is I pre-pack the bearing. So you've got this little tool. I don't remember where I got it from, but you just put your CV axle in there and your housing like this. And then you got a grease zerk there, and I just grease it until I got way too much grease oozing out of everywhere. Really? Are we out of frickin' grease in the grease gun? Every time. Let's try this for the 97th time. You hear that? It's kind of burping all the air out. That means you got way too much grease in there. So that's perfect. You get way longer life out of the bearing if you just do this one simple thing when you install it. It is greased from the factory. Some would argue it has the proper amount of grease in it. but I just get longer bearing life if I do grease it. So, especially if you do water crossings and stuff like that. So this is a pretty nice investment for being able to grease it, and it's impossible to ever clean this thing back up. It has grease on it all the time. Okay, now next step is we can put the arms back on there. Oh, I forgot I drilled this out for 3/4. So that's actually a 1/2 inch hole. Huh, I forgot I did that a long time ago. Let me show you. So here's my factory one that we're replacing. See how that hole is big enough to accept a 1/2 inch bolt? And then see how this one won't take a 1/2 inch bolt? Well, on the 1000s, you know, before the fancy pants turbo models came out that had all kinds of power, these were little tiny hardware. What happened to me is factory bolts came loose because didn't have any Loctite on anything. Even though they had nylocks, they still came loose. And this hammered around in here and it wallered out that hole. So what I did is I just measured the biggest part of that hole and I drilled it out 1/2 inch. And then I got these bushings for the rod ends here. They're, I think, 3/4 ID, 1/2 inch, or 3/4 OD, 1/2 inch ID. So I need to get a 1/2 inch bit and run it through that. All right, here we go. Probably for sure would be better to do this with a reamer than a drill bit, but this is what we got, so this is what you get, all right? Can't throw a fit about what you get, or what you get what you get and you don't throw a fit. I don't know what they say something. Okay, there we go. We got it. We didn't throw a fit. All right, don't forget your frickin' Loctite. A little dab will do ya. Just a little bit. Whoa. That might be too much, but that's good. This helps to ensure that parts aren't gonna fall off, you know, while you're going ham on the trails out there. So it's always good. Put some Loctite on your nuts. You remember the old one was all loosey-goosey and weeble wobbling and whatnot and who's your daddy and stuff like that. This is the new knuckle with the brand new bearing with the brand new hub. Put our little axle washers on there. And our castle nut. This is gonna get loud. Put your safety equipment in your ear holes. If you can hear still. Look at this. Zero play. So that means that the problem with the old one, which the old one is right here, 100% our problem was this piece right here. The ID of this, hold on, let me rearrange my hands here. The ID of this knuckle is allowing the bearing to rotate in there. So all of our play was between this knuckle and the bearing, the OD of the bearing. But now we know the Amazon cheapo hubs, this black piece, that's what I'm calling the hub. The Amazon cheapo hub is just as good as far as ID, OD, and all that other stuff as the Polaris one, because we just measured it all. Everything's good. Here is the factory one. The reason why I replaced it is, can you see those marks on that? That's because at some point the bearing did spin on that. This one was still tight with the new bearing and the new knuckle, but I just figured I have a new one. I'm not even going to screw around with it. That thing's got like over 6,000 miles on it. Why not put the new stuff on the frickin' RZR? Okay. So that's what we did.